Welcome to the fifth lesson of Chapter 6, where we delve into the concept of used margin in Forex trading. Today, we're going to unravel the mystery behind this critical term that plays a significant role in your trading journey. As we embark on this lesson, it's essential to keep in mind that understanding used margin is not about complex calculations or daunting economics. It's about grasping the fundamental ideas that underpin Forex trading. Let's start with the basics. What is used margin? Simply put, used margin is the total amount of margin that is currently being used to keep open positions active in your trading account. Think of it as the financial buffer that you've set aside to maintain your existing trades. It's like a deposit you've placed to ensure your trades continue smoothly. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Used margin should not be confused with required margin. While they might sound similar, they have different roles in Forex trading. Required margin is the amount of money required for each individual trade you make. It's the deposit that your broker requires from you to open a new position. To illustrate the difference, imagine you're at a buffet. The used margin is like the total amount of food you've piled on your plate. It represents all the trades you've currently got open. On the other hand, the required margin is like the portion size of each individual dish. It represents the margin needed for each specific trade. So, in essence, the used margin is the cumulative total of all the required margins for your open positions. It's a dynamic figure that changes as you open and close trades. As we move forward, you will get a clearer understanding of how used margin differs from required margin. We'll also delve into how to calculate used margin, why it's important to manage it effectively, and its practical applications in different trading scenarios. So, buckle up for this enlightening journey into the world of Forex trading. Now, we will examine how required margin relates to individual trades, while used margin is the cumulative margin needed for all open positions. Let's grasp these two concepts, which are like two sides of the same coin. To begin with, let's imagine that each trade you make is like a single brick in a wall. Each brick or trade requires a certain amount of mortar or margin to hold it in place. That mortar is your required margin. It is the minimum amount of money you need to hold a position open for each individual trade. Now consider the entire wall. The wall is built of many bricks, and the total amount of mortar used to hold all those bricks together. That's your used margin. It is the cumulative amount of margin used to keep all your open positions active. So while required margin pertains to individual trades, used margin is the sum total for all open positions. In other words, required margin is the minimum amount you need for each trade, while used margin is the total amount you have committed across all your trades. It's essential to understand this difference because it helps manage your risk. If you only focus on the required margin for each trade, you might overlook the total amount of money at risk. This is where the used margin comes into play. It gives you a broader perspective of your overall trading activity. Think of it this way. If you're building a wall, you don't just need to worry about the mortar for each brick. You also need to consider the total amount of mortar you'll need for the entire wall. In the same vein, when trading, you need to keep an eye on both your required margin for each trade and your used margin for all open positions. Remember, required margin pertains to individual trades, whereas used margin is the sum total for all open positions. This understanding will help you manage your trading activity more effectively, and ultimately, become a more successful trader. Calculating used margin may seem complex, but it's simpler than you might think. We're now going to delve into the methods for calculating used margin. The primary method for this is by adding up the required margin amounts for all open trades. Now, don't let the term required margin intimidate you. It simply refers to the minimum amount of equity that must be in your account in order for you to open a trade. To put it in a simple context, if you were to view your Forex account as a shopping cart, the required margin would be the price tag on each item you wish to purchase, or in this case, trade. The used margin, on the other hand, would be the total cost of all the items in your cart. Now, how do we go about calculating the used margin? Let's break it down. Step 1. Calculate the required margin for each open trade. This is typically done by multiplying the trade size by the margin percentage. Keep in mind that the margin percentage can vary depending on the currency pair and the leverage set by your broker. Step 2. Add up the required margin amounts for all open trades. This cumulative total gives you the used margin. Let's illustrate this with an example. Suppose you have 3 open trades and the required margin for each trade is $100. To calculate the used margin, you would add up the required margin for all 3 trades. So, $100 plus $100 plus $100 equals $300. Therefore, the used margin in this scenario would be $300. It's important to note that the used margin is not a static figure. It changes in real time as you open and close trades. It's a dynamic reflection of your trading activity. So, why is calculating used margin important? Well, it gives you a clear picture of how much of your account's equity is tied up in open trades. This is crucial for assessing your trading capacity and risk exposure. Remember, the higher your used margin, the less free margin you have available to open new trades. Conversely, the lower your used margin, the more free margin you have at your disposal. It's all about balance. You might be wondering, what if I run out of free margin? Well, that's when you may face a margin call, a scenario every trader aims to avoid. A margin call is essentially a demand from your broker for additional funds to cover potential losses from open trades. But don't worry, understanding and managing your used margin can help you avoid such predicaments. It's all about being informed and proactive in your trading strategy. By adding up the required margin amounts for all open trades, you can easily calculate your used margin. And with this knowledge, you're one step closer to mastering the art of Forex trading. Understanding the importance of used margin is crucial to successful Forex trading. Let's delve into why this is so. Used margin is the lifeblood of your trading account. It's like the fuel in your car. Without it, you're not going anywhere. But it's not just about having enough fuel, it's about managing it wisely. This is where used margin comes into play. Think of used margin as your trading buffer. It's the total amount of margin tied up in your current open positions. It's the safety net that ensures you have enough capital to cover potential losses. But why is managing it so important? Well, 3 reasons stand out. Risk assessment, determining the capacity to open new positions, and preparing for margin calls. Let's break it down. Firstly, risk assessment. By keeping a close eye on your used margin, you can gauge how much risk you're currently exposed to. If your used margin is high, it means a large portion of your account is tied up in open trades. This can be risky, as it leaves you vulnerable to market fluctuations. Secondly, your used margin determines your capacity to open new positions. Just like a car with a full tank can travel further, an account with lower used margin has more room to open new trades. If your used margin is high, it might be time to close some positions to free up some margin. Finally, used margin can help you prepare for potential margin calls. A margin call is a warning from your broker that your account has fallen below the required maintenance margin. Keeping your used margin in check can help you avoid these calls, which can force you to close positions or add more funds. To sum it up, managing your used margin is like balancing a tightrope. It's a delicate act of keeping enough margin to cover your open positions, while also leaving room for new opportunities. It's about keeping your risk in check and being prepared for the unexpected. Keep in mind, effective management of used margin is key to assessing risk and preparing for potential margin calls. This is your ticket to a more successful and sustainable Forex trading journey. With theoretical knowledge in place, let's move on to practical applications. Imagine you're a Forex trader with a margin account. You have a balance of $10,000 and a leverage ratio of 100 to 1. This means you can control a trade worth up to $1 million. Exciting, isn't it? Now let's say you decide to open a long position on EUR/USD at 1 lot, which is equivalent to 100,000 units. The required margin for this trade, given your leverage, is $1,000. This amount is now locked in as your used margin and cannot be used to open further positions. So, you've opened your first position and your account's used margin is now $1,000. But what if you want to open another position? Can you do it? Well, the answer lies in your free margin, which is the remaining balance in your account after deducting the used margin. In our case, you'd have $9,000 left as free margin. Now imagine you open another position, this time on USD/JPY, and the required margin for this trade is another $1,000. This means your used margin will now be $2,000, and your free margin will drop to $8,000. What's crucial to understand here is that as you open more positions, your used margin increases and your free margin decreases, limiting your capacity to open new trades. Now let's consider a different scenario. Imagine the market moves against your positions and you start losing money. If your losses exceed your free margin, you'll receive a margin call, asking you to deposit more funds or close some positions to free up margin. For instance, if your losses reach $8,500, you will only have $500 left as free margin. If the market continues against you and your losses exceed this amount, you will enter into a margin call situation. This is where the practical understanding of used margin becomes vital. It helps you manage your risk, avoid margin calls, and maintain a healthy trading account. But remember, used margin isn't just a risk management tool. It also enables you to maximize your trading potential. By effectively using your margin, you can open multiple positions and diversify your portfolio. However, this should be done with caution, as higher used margin can also lead to higher potential losses. In conclusion, understanding used margin's practical application can make a significant difference in your trading strategy. It can help you manage your risk, optimize your trading potential, and avoid unexpected surprises like margin calls. Understanding these practical examples will help you apply your knowledge of used margin effectively in your trading. And with this, we wrap up our discussion on the practical application of used margin. But don't go just yet. We have more to explore in our next scene, where we'll learn how to visualize used margin. So stay tuned and keep learning. A visual understanding of used margin can help you see its impact on your overall account balance and trading capacity. Picture this. Imagine a large container representing your trading account. Now envision multiple smaller vessels within this container, each standing for an open position in your portfolio. The space occupied by these smaller vessels, in relation to the total capacity of the larger container, is a visual representation of used margin. The used margin, as we've discussed, is the cumulative total of the required margin for all open positions. It's the space taken up by the smaller vessels. It's important to remember that as you open more positions, the size and number of these smaller vessels increase, effectively reducing the remaining space in the larger container or your trading capacity. Now let's add another layer to this visualization. Imagine the water level in the large container fluctuating with the ebb and flow of the market. When the market moves in your favor, the water level rises, leaving less room for the used margin. On the contrary, when the market moves against you, the water level drops, increasing the space taken up by the used margin. This visualization can help you understand the dynamics of used margin and its impact on your account balance. It's a constant balancing act, managing the space in your trading account container while keeping an eye on the market's water level. And just as a captain must keep an eye on the water levels in the ship's hull to avoid capsizing, a trader must monitor the used margin to ensure the account does not fall into a margin call. Remember, the goal is not to fill your container to the brim, but rather to maintain a healthy balance, leaving room for potential market fluctuations. In conclusion, visualizing used margin as a container filled with smaller vessels can help you understand its role and impact on your overall trading balance and trading capacity. Visualizing used margin will help you grasp its significance on your overall trading strategy. We have now reached the end of our 5th lesson on understanding the concept of used margin. Throughout this journey, we've explored the fundamental difference between used and required margin, shedding light on how the latter relates to individual trades, while the former represents the cumulative margin needed for all open positions. We've also delved into the process of calculating used margin, a crucial skill for any Forex trader. In addition, we've emphasized the importance of managing this type of margin, highlighting its role in assessing risk, determining the ability to open new positions, and preparing for potential margin calls. We've brought these concepts to life through real-world scenarios, providing practical illustrations of how used margin operates in various trading situations. Finally, we've suggested visual methods to better understand used margin and its impact on your overall account balance and trading capacity. We encourage you to complete this lesson and look forward to welcoming you to the next lesson, Understanding Account Equity in Forex Trading.